You remember growing up watching these classic cartoons, right? I mean, we all did. And honestly, we laughed every single time. Tom the cat gets completely flattened by a steamroller and just walks it off. The Roadrunner speeds off a cliff and just magically floats there in the air. Or, an anvil drops from the sky, you hear that loud clank, maybe see some spinning stars around a dizzy head, and nobody actually gets hurt.
It really was comedic innocence at its finest. Just harmless laughs, right? I mean, what is funnier than a coyote running straight off the edge of a canyon, just kind of hovering in midair for a second, and then plummeting down into a tiny, distant puff of dust?
But here's what nobody told you when you were a kid, and it's exactly what we're diving into in today's explainer. We actually ran the science. We calculated the real forces, the actual speeds, and the real-world impacts. And honestly, what we found is deeply, deeply disturbing. What you're about to see is what would actually happen if cartoon physics were real.
Let's start with Section 1, the classic anvil drop, 300 feet of falling iron.
So in cartoon land, an anvil drop is just a brilliant punchline. The victim gets squashed flat, pops back up like an accordion with a goofy sound effect, and life just goes on. But the scientific reality? A standard blacksmith anvil weighs roughly 150 pounds. Dropped from a height of 300 feet, it doesn't just tap you on the head. It actually reaches a terminal velocity of over 90 miles per hour right before impact. The force generated upon landing is approximately 50,000 newtons. That is not a punchline. That is unsurvivable. Every single time.
Section 2. Breaking the sound barrier. The Roadrunner. Cute bird. Fast. Totally harmless, right? We've all seen him zipping around the desert, playfully dodging all those traps. But scientists actually went in and estimated the Roadrunner's true speed based on the animation frames and the distance he covers in the show. And the number they got back, it completely shatters our understanding of this innocent little bird.
The Roadrunner is running at an estimated 1,000 miles per hour. That completely shatters the sound barrier. At 1,000 miles per hour, the environmental impact is catastrophic. The sonic boom alone would shatter every single window within a half-mile radius. The sheer force of the air displacement, it would violently flip cars over. And Wile E. Coyote, chasing this thing on foot, any birds or wildlife in his path wouldn't just be pushed aside, they would simply cease to exist.
Moving on to Section 3, the brutal reality of gravity. Running off cliffs. Characters only seem to fall when they finally look down.
You've seen this 1,000 times. The character runs off the edge, just keeps sprinting on thin air, and only drops when they look down. Cartoon logic says gravity needs your permission, but real physics, it offers absolutely no comedic pauses. The very second your foot leaves solid ground, gravity acts instantly. There are no second chances. If you were to run off a 500-foot cliff, you would hit the ground in exactly 5.6 seconds, and you would hit it traveling at 125 miles per hour.
That famous look-down moment, those 2 seconds of hovering in midair, that is simply 2 seconds of pure denial. A denial that physics does not honor.
Section 4. Unforgiving mass. The steamroller trope. You know the one, a cat gets flattened completely paper-thin by a massive machine and then literally just peels himself off the ground like a giant sticker and walks away.
But let's look at the biological result of what a steamroller actually does. A standard construction steamroller weighs up to 20,000 kilograms. The extreme pressure it exerts per square inch makes it literally one of the most destructive machines ever built. The biological result of that kind of pressure? Complete and total destruction.
There is no peeling yourself off the pavement. There is no shaking it off. Tom would not survive the first wheel.
Section 5. Pressure and explosive force. Or, as we know it, taking a stick of dynamite straight to the face. Usually, the duck just ends up annoyed with his beak rotated to the back of his head.
But this is the exact point where cartoon physics becomes genuinely horrifying. A single stick of dynamite creates a horrific pressure wave of roughly 1,500 pounds per square inch.
At point-blank range, that pressure wave doesn't just burn you. It causes massive biological trauma. It ruptures eardrums, ruptures lungs, ruptures blood vessels. A backwards beak would be the absolute least of Daffy's concerns. Actually, scratch that. Daffy would have no concerns, ever again. And finally, Section 6. The skyscraper freefall, a 600-foot drop. because nothing says comedy gold quite like a character-shaped hole in the sidewalk.
You know the gag. They climb out of their personalized crater, dust off their knees, and get right back to business. But falling from a standard 50-floor skyscraper means dropping 600 feet. Terminal velocity for a human falling through the air is 120 miles per hour, which is reached in approximately 12 seconds. The devastating force of that impact is mathematically equivalent to standing completely still and being struck by a heavy vehicle traveling at 120 miles per hour.
The expectation is a neat, character-shaped silhouette stamped perfectly into the earth. The reality? The ground does not make a neat hole. The ground wins, completely and permanently.
Well, cartoons were never meant to be realistic. We all know that. But there's something uniquely unsettling about actually running the numbers. Because somewhere between the laughs and the endless desert chase scenes, real physics was sitting quietly in the corner, waiting, watching, to see what would happen if any of it were real. So the next time you blindly accept the impossible on a screen, you kind of have to ask yourself, what other harmless fictions are we comfortably accepting in our everyday lives? Sleep well.